that Democrats don't want to talk about my voting record because it's a voting record that Missourians would agree with, and my opponent wouldn't, and Senate Democrats and those national groups funding my opponent wouldn't, but they know that Missourians would.
That's Roy Blunt, Senator Roy Blunt from last week on the show. Megan Hughes from ABC News. You need to explain, Megan Hughes, how can it be in the state of Missouri where Donald Trump is up anywhere from 13 to 8 points, is going to win the state of Missouri easily, and yet Roy Blunt, Republican, is in the fight for his life for re-election?
You know, it's incredible, and it's a tough year for Republicans. Democrats have been eyeing a takeover of the Senate for some time leading up to this. It is as close as it gets in about 7 states. There's 6 or 7 states that we're watching, Missouri being one of them. And it's an interesting story. I mean, I think a lot of the appeal of Donald Trump to Republicans and Republicans that support Donald Trump, he touts that he's an outsider, that he wants to drain the swamp and get rid of those insiders. And Senator Roy Blunt fits that profile, and Jason Kander has capitalized on that.
Megan, with other states like Nevada with Joe Hack, and Pennsylvania with Pat Tomey, and New Hampshire with Kelly Ayotte, those are Republicans in states where Donald Trump is tied or losing. So they've sort of tried to distance themselves from Donald Trump to help. In Missouri, Roy Blunt has tried to marry himself to Donald Trump.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think the candidacy of Donald Trump has created a lot of problems down the ballot, not necessarily in terms of who's voting and how they're voting, and that remains to be seen how that will play out, but in terms of how the candidates themselves receive Donald Trump. Senator Kelly Ayotte in New Hampshire, one of her biggest problems has been trying to figure out how to manipulate her being a Republican and Trump being on the ballot. First, she called him a role model. Then she said she misspoke. She endorsed him. Then she said she'd rather lose than have to vote for him. So she's really been a strong example of someone who has had some trouble reconciling that.
Where is she in terms of the polls right now?
They have been very, very close. Ayotte slightly ahead at the end of October, but certainly within the margin of error. Like I said, this may be a situation where on Wednesday morning, several of these races, we are still waiting. We may see challenges, and we are talking about the balance of the Senate, which is a pretty big deal when it comes to confirmations, when it comes to just laying out the agenda and setting the table for the next president.
Republican Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania, what are his numbers saying?
Again, that's one of the very, very tight races. I believe several polls did give Toomey a slight lead. He has raised a ton of money. Republicans have spent a lot of money in that state trying to hold that seat. Katie McGinty is the challenger there, and she's had some firepower just in terms of how much the Obamas have visited and campaigned there. Hillary Clinton lending her some star power and some name recognition.
Yeah, good news for the Republicans. It looks like Marco Rubio down in Florida is going to win pretty handily.
Yeah, and that was a big question for some time, but the Democrats kind of pulled their funding from Representative Murphy, who's the challenger there. So Rubio is looking on more solid footing. One other race that I think would be interesting to point out, just for the people of Missouri, what we're seeing happen between Blunt and Kander, if you take a look at Indiana, it's almost a flip of parties. You're seeing a very similar Todd Young, a young guy, a veteran challenging former senator who Democrats thought they had it locked up with Evan Bayh in Indiana. But the fact that he has been in Washington, he's also been subject to a lot of negative attacks. The address of his Indiana condo, he had incorrectly listed somewhere. Some of his meetings with lobbyists and things that he was looking to do after leaving the Senate have been under attack. So again, this is in some states, Missouri and Indiana perhaps, it's not great to be seen as an insider.
Yeah, except, of course, if you're a United States congressman, and then 99.2% of them are going to get reelected.
Yeah, I mean, we probably won't be talking about the House of Representatives as much. Democrats do have some chances to pick up some seats, probably not more than 30, but Republicans are going to be still running the tables there.
Megan Hughes, ABC News correspondent, watching the polls for us. Megan, thanks for checking in.
Thank you.
656 here, Big 550 KTRS. It cracks me up every time people talk about how, oh my goodness, it's throw the bums out. And yet the House of Representatives, everybody votes for their guy. I know people are screaming at the phone, or their app, their radio, saying, well, what about the gerrymandering? Well, yeah, that's true. You want to throw the other guy out, but you don't want to throw your own guy out. Unless, of course, when it comes down to Roy Blunt, which is why, they're talking about Missouri going for Trump. I've seen some polls, 13-point swing for Trump in Missouri. That means if he wins, 56, 57% of the vote, 58% of the vote, that means 8% of the people who vote for Trump, are they going to turn around and vote for Jason Kander? That one is a head scratcher. But we'll wait and see what happens with Senator Blunt and Jason Kander. 757, Big 5.